Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got another knife review for you right here, right now. But first, feel free to subscribe, hit that little bell notification if you do not want to miss weekly knife and gun videos. This is going to be a knife that goes back a ways, and I've had it for many, many years, used it for a long time. Did a review on it years ago, but now that we got some better audio and video quality here, and our reviewer has more experience, I figured it was time to do a re-review, a revisit. The Cold Steel Pocket Bushman. One of my favorites. It's very affordable, very, very simple, but extremely strong. That's the whole theme of this knife. It's simplicity, affordability, and strength. You really cannot get too much stronger as far as folding knives are concerned for this price point. Let's just get the specs out of the way real quick. According to Cold Steel's official website, this weighs 6.6 ounces, 4.5-inch blade length, an overall length of 10.25 inches, making the handle length 5.75 inches. Handle material is made of 420 series stainless steel. The blade steel is 4116 German Krupp. They say it's cryo-quenched. And we have a very unusual locking mechanism right here. This is what they call the ram-safe lock. Now, this is the only knife that I know of that Cold Steel has ever used this locking mechanism on. But essentially, it's a long-ass bar of stainless steel, as you can see on the inside of the channel right there. And in here somewhere is an internal spring before this screw that kind of keeps it in place. I have a video on how this works in depth, but keep things quick and simple. The spring is constantly putting pressure this way forward on the ram-safe lock. That's what keeps it in place. But if you pull it out far enough, it clears the space right here. It's literally just a rectangular prismatic bar that shoves itself inside of the tang of the blade. You can see that apt cutout right there. There it is, poking out inside of the channel. Hello. It's constantly trying to push itself forward because of that spring. So when it's timed up, just like any other locking mechanism, you can see it snap itself into place. Now that bar is sandwiched between the top of the tang of the blade as well as the bottom of the roof of this metal handle right here. Another very interesting thing about this knife, the handle is literally just one piece of steel. One solid piece that has been rolled over, as you can see. So we don't even have multiple pieces that are screwed or pinned together. It's literally just one piece of steel. And to accommodate that piece of steel, to make this knife work, to make it lock into place regardless, that's what this locking mechanism is capable of doing. It's just one big long bar with a spring that's constantly shoving itself forward. That's about it. Now it is slow. You cannot flick this thing out as far as I know, unless you really, really gave it a whip. I've never seen that done, but yeah, I'm not even going to try that. I would not even bother attempting to do that. There's a lot of tension and a lot of pressure on this knife, so it's very, very slow. You pretty much can only open it conventionally. I would not bother attempting to flick it open. You can relieve it and open up a little bit quicker by pulling back on the locking mechanism, relieving the pressure as you open it up, which is something I often do. That certainly helps, but flicking it out is just going to be awkward regardless of what you do. So it's pretty much just a conventional only knife. But this knife is not intended to be a tactical or defensive blade that you open up quickly. It's an outdoorsman's bushcraft survival knife. It is slow, but it is very, very, very strong. Now, how does the ram-safe lock compare directly to the triad lock, let's just say, one of the strongest locking mechanisms in the world that's on most of Cold Steel's knives as far as I know? I'm not actually sure if this is stronger or better than the triad lock. Cold Steel has done tests with the ram-safe lock before with some very impressive results, but they've also done a lot of tests with the triad lock, which also showed a lot of very impressive results. I'm not really sure which one's stronger or better, but what I will say, this one is a lot more simple. It's, again, just one massive bar of steel sandwiched in between both this portion right here. You can see how much surface area that's covering right there, the tang of the blade, as well as about that same amount of space on the roof of the steel. That's where it sandwiches itself in between. You just hear that really positive, authoritative lockup right there, a very massive snap. Now this will be tanking in all of the positive force on the blade, so every time you make a cut, that's what's absorbing it, is that lock bar, which technically will transfer to the spring back here. Any negative force will be transferred to that bar, but then to the handle itself. So negative force, I think, is all covered by this locking mechanism. You're not going to have any issues there because, again, the handle itself absorbs that. This solid piece of tempered 420 steel is tanking all of that in, so you'll have no issues. You don't have to worry about any screws even unscrewing or shaking themselves out after all of that shock, because there's nothing to really shake out. It's just, again, one piece of steel. Very, very simple, very strong. Can't get much stronger than a single piece of material. But I will say, the positive force, the brunt of it is being taken by this locking mechanism, but it's a very, very, very massive locking mechanism. It's enormous. So unless anything went wrong with the spring back here, I don't see any issues occurring with this knife. There's plenty of videos out there of people batoning with these things. It's an extremely, I would call that straight up just an abusive test when it comes to folding knives, but there's plenty of people who have done it. I've seen shock absorption tests. This knife getting slammed against 2x4s from the bolster area, the blade. I've seen it done on the spine. The knife does not lose any of its lockup, any of its integrity after even those tests. Back in the day, I'm talking like over 15 years ago or so, I'm filming this early mid 2024 right now, there were issues some people were having with this knife. I believe it had something to do with the spring they used back in the day. But ever since those complaints all those years ago, I've never seen anything really go wrong with these knives. Not really sure what the deal with that was. I don't know if there was a string of lemons that were sold for a while. I'm not really sure. But in the last decade or so, I have not really seen any issues with this knife, even after undergoing abusive tests. Stonewash finish on there. Very simple, very beautiful. It's like a lot of cold steels that use the same finish. I like it. It's very easy to manufacture, very easy to throw in the blades there. It doesn't break the bank. It's functional. It'll help prevent rust and corrosion. And it looks beautiful too, I think. Now, as for the 4116 stainless steel, there's certainly better steels out there. It's a very affordable steel. Again, very cheap, very easy to work with, very soft, but it gets hella sharp, and Cold Steel does a great job sharpening their blades. Now, as for an outdoorsman's knife, you'd probably be whaling on. That's what I would figure the intended purpose of this knife is. Out and about in the woods, a bushcraft survival blade, hacking through wood, chopping down trees, etc. I actually would want a softer steel. That's one of the last tasks I would want, a harder, higher quality steel. I know we all love our S30V, S35VN, and everything else that's really, really hard and has an edge that will last forever and you never have to resharpen it. The problem with those steels that a lot of people don't mention, though, is the fact that not only are they extremely expensive oftentimes, but the blades are brittle. If you apply enough shock to those blades, to that steel, they may just shatter on you outright, if not just the edge chipping away and losing the material. So those steels are great if you want edge retention, but they're not fantastic when it comes to hard use. Typically, for hard use, I actually want a softer edge. Worst case, it'll probably roll over a little bit, but I can sharpen it back out. I can strop it afterward, too. Say what you will about the 4116. I'm not wild about that steel either, but what I will say, at this price point and for this knife's intended purpose of use, I think that's absolutely okay. Not bad at all. You can get these for around the $30 range, 30 on the high end. Sometimes you can find these for about 25 bucks. These retail at $44.99, which already isn't a terrible price if you're going to go full retail, but I don't know anyone who pays full retail, so half of that is A+. Absolute fantastic price point on this guy. Very simple blade shape right here, clip point. Not a whole lot going on there, just a decent amount of belly, you know, flat grind. Strong. You can see how thick that is. Handle, although I do like the shape of it, it's not exactly comfortable because how thin the steel is on the edges right here anywhere where the middle of your fingers would line up to. If you were to use this hard after a long period of time with no gloves, that's going to wear on your fingers a bit. It's pretty sharp down there. It's going to be pretty raw on your hands. But again, if I were doing hard outdoor use, I'd probably have work gloves of some kinds on anyway, so not really a big deal there. You can only make metal so comfortable if it's at this size and with this particular pattern. As for the locking mechanism itself, it does come with this lanyard minded anyway, but you can swap that out with anything you like. You could take the lanyard off and just use your fingers to disengage that. I would not even bother though. It's very, very uncomfortable. They did jimp this all around just in case you were in that dire of a situation. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother doing that. It's really, really... You can hear that it kind of clicks into place. I mean, if you use this long enough, you put enough wear on this and you broke it in enough, I think eventually it would get slightly easier to disengage. It would be less sticky, but I'm not even going to bother with that. I absolutely recommend you either keep the lanyard on or just put your own other lanyard on there of some kind to help you, give you some leverage to disengage the sucker. Man, it just locks with authority. It also snaps shut with some authority too. Doesn't have like a huge snap or anything, but that locking mechanism, if you shove that forward, it's going to guillotine shut. So be careful with this knife. Don't try to whip it out and flick it. Don't be willy-nilly with it while you're deploying or closing it. Treat it with care. Just be careful. I've never injured myself on these things, but I have heard of people who have. So just keep that channel clear. Don't do anything stupid with it, and you'll be a-okay. Bead blasted finish on the handle material, by the way. And then we got a bead blast on this pocket clip right here. It's kind of Cold Steel standard pocket clip you see on their Tough Light series. I believe their Pro Light also uses it. I really like this clip, actually. It's nice and squared off. It's cool looking, very simple. Not a whole lot going out there, but it is swappable to the left side. Look at that. Ambidextrous, lefty-friendly folding knife. We got the dual thumb studs right there. The pocket clip that's swappable to the left side. It's tip up. Thank you very much. Locking mechanism, obviously. That's ambidextrous too. They do this weird lopsided thing. I don't know why Cold Steel does this with their Voyagers in particular, but you'll notice that it's lopsided. This side on the right, it's extending out more than the side on the left. It's still technically usable lefty, but it's just not protruding as much, but you can swap it around. I just don't know why they don't simply give you a symmetrical thumb stud out of the box. I don't know why Cold Steel does that. Cold Steel, if you're watching this right now, would you be willing to answer? I'm curious. I don't see it as a bad thing. I just don't understand why you insist on doing that. But regardless, carry's fine. It is on the heavier side. Again, 6.6 ounces according to their website. Let's just see what my scale has to say about that. Keep in mind, it is with the lanyard, so it's going to add a little bit of weight on there. Let's 6.54 including the lanyard, so about 6.5 give or take, whatever. It's certainly under 7 ounces. Not bad at all. There's a decent amount poking out of your pocket right there, but honestly for this knife, I don't care that it's not loop over. I don't care that it's a super covert tactical pocket clip, because this is not a knife I would carry for defense. It's not a knife I would carry for martial use. It's a knife I would carry if I were out and about in the woods, doing bushcraft outdoorsy nonsense. A survival knife. It is a bit heavy. When we're getting into survival, a lot of people like their lightweight stuff, things to be as lightweight as possible, but you can't have your cake and eat it. You know, if you want something really, really strong, you are going to sacrifice some weight. It's going to weigh you down a little bit more. You got to kind of pick your poison. This knife's all about strength, hard use, and shock absorption. Because of its simplicity, because of how massive the locking mechanism is, because our handle is just one piece of metal that's rolled over. You don't have to worry about parts shaking out or rattling outwards, anything falling apart. There's very little liabilities on this knife because of its simplicity. So it can just undergo a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, a lot of abuse. It can take it all. I wouldn't go nuts with these things. I wouldn't deliberately attempt to break them and then complain when they do break. But from what I've seen, from what I've tested, they can take a lot of abuse. Essentially, it's kind of like a virtual fixed blade. You know, everything that you would do with a fixed blade, you probably more or less could do with this knife, with some exceptions, but generally speaking, we have a lot of strength going on here. If you're out in the woods, I would honestly just recommend having a fixed blade on you if you're going to be doing long-term outdoor tasks. But this is a great backup knife that fits in your pocket. You know, it's slim enough and compact enough, despite being long. It's long. It's a very, very long blade, 4.5 inches, nothing to sneeze at. But you can comfortably fit this guy and carry it in your pocket as if it's some EDC knife, despite being a little bit heavier and a little bit longer. It's a great outdoors folding camping knife, I think. And at this price point, again, it's just something you could just throw into your collection. You just want something that's extremely strong, extremely simple, something unique, because of that ram safe lock right there. There's not many other knives other that have locking mechanisms like this, even by Cold Steel. The Pocket Bushman has a very special place in my heart. I don't use it that often. I don't carry it that often. It's not a very good EDC knife. It's not a very good tactical blade, but it is one of the best folding outdoorsman's bushcraft blades. Survival blade, hell yeah. For this price point, I can't really complain about anything, honestly. I think it's really, really awesome. It's a really, really cool, unique knife. Anyway, that's it. What do you think of the Pocket Bushman? Do you have one? Used one before? Have you seen its strength displayed firsthand? Have you had any issues with it? What were they? What do you think of the ram safe lock? Do you think Cold Steel should move forward with it and start applying it to more of their knives? Please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Mannix out.